It's a story many of us have heard as a child. You grow up, you fall in love, get married, and live happily ever after. Here's the thing about love. It's a feeling. It's hard to define. And here's the thing about that story. It's not always true. For some, the definition of love, of relationships, is evolving. Here is a different story.
My fiance and I practice what people think of as partner non-monogamy. What that means is we live together and each other's needs come first. He is very much the primary in my life. And then we also see other people.
How many relationships would you say you're in?
I am in 4 relationships right now. have been seeing a woman for 2 years. We say I love you to each other. I also see a man about once a month. And then I have what I like to call my distraction spot for whoever happens to be catching my attention at the time.
Miju is an engineer at a major tech company. She describes her relationship structure as polyamorous. If you break it down, it's exactly how it sounds. Poly meaning many, amorous meaning love. The concept sounded crazy at first, but true to the tradition of the Valley, Miju decided to challenge the status quo.
People in Silicon Valley are always looking for ways to change norms that might be better for people. But I don't think it's something limited to people in Silicon Valley at all. I think this is something that could be for everybody. It's just more okay to be out about it in tech. Some big tech companies are definitely more amenable to accepting differences. Part of the reason they might be motivated to do something like that is that there's such a scarcity of talent, especially for technical skills.
We've seen entrepreneurs hack transportation, and companies like Uber come out of that. Can you hack love and the way that traditional relationships work?
In many ways, we are hacking love. Polyamory is a form of optimization in the sense that you make trade-offs and you take risks. In technology, people have higher appetites for risk. Opening up your relationship is really risky, kind of in a similar way that starting a company is really risky.
Dr. Helen Fisher is a biological anthropologist. She spends her time studying sex and human relationships.
What's interesting about polyamory is that everybody agrees. They're totally honest about it. They believe it can work. Their only real problem is that the human animal is not built for this. Love is complicated, but it's basically, I think, stems from these 3 basic brain systems. There's sexual love, there's intense romantic love, and there's feelings of deep attachment. These are 3 different brain systems. Millions of years ago, we evolved the drive to pair up and rear our children as a team. And as a result, along with that came a great deal of jealousy. We're a naturally jealous animal.
Polyamory is not new, and neither is the concept of an open relationship. Its roots in the U.S. date back to the 19th century in upstate New York, where a minister named John Noyes conducted an experiment called complex marriage. 300 people living in a commune, all considered to be married to one another. A century later, another iteration of non-monogamy became popular in an era known for free love. It was the 60s. 50 years after that, the mobile web has started to reach its full potential. Technology is connecting people looking to experiment while lifting the curtain on counterculture. Chris Messina, in a sense, invented part of internet culture. He started Twitter's use of the hashtag. He also happens to be non-monogamous. The way he sees it, traditional relationships are ripe for disruption.
If you're trying to build a product, let's say, to draw an analogy, and it's failing 50% of the time, you might want to consider the design and think about ways of improving that. So that isn't to say that like monogamy or marriage is inherently flawed, but it may not be the right product for everybody. Now with services like Secret, maybe Reddit, there's now communities that are like talking about these things and trying to figure out what these things are actually all about with a degree of understanding that just never existed before. It's like, wow, my weird is not so weird. You know, I could find a community of like 100,000 people online now where, you know, a couple years ago I would have felt like the only person doing this thing. All of a sudden, like my weirdness is put into context and it's like, oh, I guess this isn't so strange after all.
A greater trend across the country. 5% of Americans are involved in consensual, non-monogamous relationships. There's even a class for couples considering polyamory. It's called Monogam Maybe.
From your findings in studying these people, do most of them succeed or do most of them fail?
Eventually, they will probably almost all fail because the human brain is just simply not built to share. We are not good at sharing. This is why people are so dishonest. You know, if they fall in love with somebody from the office and they still want to sustain their home life, they'll just go underground.
You know, we were all told the story when we were young that you meet one person and you fall in love, and that's monogamy.
Monogamy is a great option for a lot of people, but polyamory is a viable alternative.
Love is irrational. Love is crazy. We do things we would never do for love. So can you be analytical about love?
I feel completely irrationally in love with my fiance. I also have that irrational love with other people, and I'm so lucky that he supports me in that quest.
What does Cinderella 2.0 look like to you?
Cinderella 2.0 has a lot of options. Cinderella 2.0 isn't necessarily waiting for her prince to come. She's looking for her prince. Maybe she has a princess on the side. In society, we have completely equated fidelity to love. We've also completely equated sex to love. And those things don't necessarily have to go together.